We are live. Welcome back, or for the first time, if it's your first time, to New World Fantasy Football. Um, I am here with my host, Paul Kiefer. I am Andrew Marchese, and we have a good conversation for you guys today. So, how you doing, Paul?
Doing good, brother. How are you? How's your Saturday?
Going well, man. Beautiful day over here in the greater Atlanta area. Chilly, but nice. So, I'm liking it. But my northern blood, I got shorts on, got you know, short sleeves. So doing well, man. Doing well.
I'm the same. I mean, it's easy for us to say that inside the house. Um, it's also kind of it's weirdly windy today. It really isn't that cold, but the wind gives it a little bit of bite. Obviously, we're sitting here complaining about nothing. Some poor SOBs up in Cleveland, Ohio, or whatever. I'm sure are having a very different experience of the weather they're up there. And I'm just pumped, man. Pumped to talk about some ball. Pumped to watch some ball.
How
The
about
started.
how about Cincinnati? The weather there might be important for what tomorrow night, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's tomorrow night.
Yeah, tomorrow
Yeah,
night,
I
eight
don't.
o'clock
Yeah, I mean
Eastern
the
time.
weather's important, but I don't think it's as important as the fact that Lamar just straight pulled himself out of the game with. I'm never going to call it a phantom injury. Like that's messed up. If you're hurt, you're hurt. I'm not going to question anybody's ability to play, but doesn't it feel like with Lamar announcing he's out of the game, the coach not announcing he's out of the game, them not being anywhere close to the same page, and all of the contract kind of hoopla that's come into that before this point, does it feel like the marriage is going down there?
Yeah, I would say so. They've had the contract issues for like a full year, might even be 2 years now. I mean, I'm sure there's things behind closed doors we'll never know about that they're having issues with.
It would probably help to have an agent.
Yeah, I would say so, especially if you're looking to get paid top dollar. I don't know. I guess he just doesn't want to give any of that away to an agent. But yeah, every day that passes and he's not playing in a playoff game, mind you, it's not like this is a regular season game, week 5, week 6. Like every game's important in the NFL, but
Yeah.
playoffs, man, it's win or go home. And you're saying, no, my future is more important than um, going out there with my boys and trying to win a big playoff game against a division rival too. So yeah, I mean, right now I would say it's a legal separation, and it very might turn into a full blown divorce. You're gonna have
Yeah.
to get the wedding crashers in there to take care of this divorce.
You know, I'm 100% with you. Like, obviously, I do think the injury is real, but if he had the stability of a full blown contract, my guess is probably wouldn't be bad enough where he couldn't play. But if I'm Lamar, I do this. I don't have anything but maybe a franchise tag going into next year. I make this thing worse. I blow my knee out worse. Like, nah, man. Like, if you all aren't that interested in having me for the long term, then I don't know that I'm going to put my body on the line for you. And from the Ravens side, I get where they're coming from too. Like, his best asset, as we know, are his legs. And, I would say, like, when he's good, Lamar, he has the ability to change the game passing. But that's not always the case. Yes, lack of weapons, whatever, all that kind of comes into play there. But given somebody like 6, 7 years, like a lot of the rest of these quarterbacks get, sometimes even longer, That's a scary proposition for teams. I think that's the back and forth conflict. And yeah, it's gonna get ugly. I got my popcorn ready. I'm interested to see what happens here.
Yeah, I do feel it's going to be a fireworks show. We're all going to be on the sidelines watching how that goes. But with the injury that he has, I mean, it seemed like he would have been back in 3 weeks. And now, what's it been? Like 6 weeks, 7 weeks that he's not back. Um, I think that as fans, we kind of want these players to be like soldiers. Like they took an oath to, what was that?
Robots.
Yeah, robots in a way, but like they didn't take an oath to protect the country or, you know, the royal crown or something like that. Like they're still human beings. And I ask myself, and just because they're getting paid like 500 times more than your average person, it's still a job. And every job has, you may love your job, you may not. Um, you may hate your job, but every job has this built-in conflict of interest where your employer is trying to get the most out of you for the least money, and you're trying to get the most money out of them doing the least amount of work or the least amount of risk, I guess you could say, in this case.
Yeah.
So that's just real humanity level stuff. And it seems to me like Lamar is choosing himself over the team. Yeah, and he knows he's going to have suitors. I mean,
He should. If they're not committing to him, he should.
I mean, we just, we talked a little bit before we came live on here, and about QBs that are gonna be drafted this, come April. There's plenty of teams that want quarterbacks. Like, are you gonna take a risk on a high upside guy, or are you gonna take a known commodity? I mean, if you're a team that's you feel is close to winning, like if Sean Payton shows up somewhere that doesn't have a QB,
He doesn't
like
want
part
to.
of that contract is like, get me the QB I want, and I want Lamar Jackson. Yeah. Well, just for example, I mean, he may not want Lamar Jackson. But.
Spoiler alert, I want to talk about that more a little later in the show here. So, Jags Chargers, who you got?
I'm taking the Jags.
Whoa.
I am. I actually have a whopping like $10 bet. Actually, no, I don't. I'm just kidding. That's illegal. It's fake money.
Yeah. Redacted for federal government purposes.
I don't want them to come after my my $12 winnings. It's almost tax season, I guess, for next year. But anyways, yeah, I got the Jags.
Ridley.
What was that?
I said you don't want them to Calvin Ridley you.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I'm taking the Jags. I'm taking the Jags. I think, it's kind of a cop-out answer. The Chargers just can't never seem to get it done. They're kind of like the AFC version of the Cowboys.
Narrative.
Team, yeah, it's the narrative, right? I'm going with the narrative. Like it's a good roster. They have a very solid quarterback. They played their starters week 18. A lot of them got hurt. Jags, hey, it took them a little too much, in my opinion. Like the Titans are a good team, but they ended up winning off of I think it was a pick six or it was a defensive touchdown. I know that.
Yeah, I mean it was close, especially considering that the Titans in theory are a good team, but we're not a good team. The back half of the season, they were like one of the worst.
Yeah, they were, and one of those losses, week 1. So yeah, I got the Jags. I'm just feeling the Jags and their beautiful stadium in Duval County. Been there a few times. It actually is terrible, but
I maybe not for like any of the 5 people listening to this, but
so
um
far,
so far. But I felt the sarcasm in your voice, but thank you for clarifying.
yeah. How about you?
It's close for me. I'll take the Chargers, I guess, just to be the contrarian that I am. I just when it's this close, I'm going to take the team that I think has been together longer and is a little further in their development process than the Jags. I mean, I think about Trevor, rookie season, super wash, didn't even count. So essentially, for me, this is a super rookie playing in the first playoff game. Obviously, I don't think Herbert has had much success, obviously, in these big games either, but it's close. I think I'll take the more veteran team.
Never a bad choice to go with that. And the Chargers are 2.5 point favorites last I checked. So I mean, it's a close one, and they're road favorites, which
Right.
may tell you a little something more, but still, I don't know. I am feeling the Jags. I think they're going to get it done. I think Doug Peterson.
They're hot. They're hot.
Yeah, they've been playing well down the stretch, and I think Doug Peterson will outcoach Brandon Staley.
Yeah,
Not
well,
to
for sure. I mean, your mom can outcoach Brandon Staley, in my opinion.
he just loves, he loves just
Big
going
brain.
for it on fourth down. He's
Big brain.
fourth down. I don't care. Fourth down, it don't matter. Like I am about coaches being aggressive, but if you're just being aggressive for aggressive sake, you're dumb.
It's like
Let's get it. We can't forget the
right.
game
Michael
that's before
Williams.
that. The game that's before that is Seahawks 49ers. Who you taking there?
Niners. Seahawks are a great story. I just think like any team that can roll out Brock Purdy and not miss a beat is an amazingly talented roster and a well coached team. So I got the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, the Niners are pretty much unanimous across everybody who watches the NFL right now. Besides maybe Seahawks fans. There are some Seahawks fans out there. Listen, it's football.
Yeah.
Any given Sunday, we hear that in our sleep. 49ers are at home. Seahawks don't have that going for them. And yeah,
But
Shanahan just knows how to coach up these QBs and get them in a good position to win. And he finds ways for his guys to get yards after the catch. He has players that are good at yards after the catch. And that defense is nasty. So
unbelievable.
it's the Niners.
Shout out to the Seahawks, man. Good for them. Like everybody thinks they're blowing it up. Trade Russ, fleece them.
You saw it? Yeah, I will put in the graphic for that trade with
Yes.
Russell Wilson because holy crap, the Broncos, like John Elway, if he wasn't John Elway, he'd be eaten out of a trash can right now. I mean, wow. It's bad.
Nobody batted an eye in the moment. If we take a time machine and take ourselves back, roughly this time last year, I don't remember when the trade went through, whatever. Nobody really batted an eye. Okay, you went out and got a franchise quarterback. That's what it costs to get him. Optics look really bad right now. I'm gonna be fair. Hackett, is lowest hanging fruit joke ever. I know. Couldn't hack it as a coach. But so I'm going to give Russ and the boys, I think one more season before I reserve complete final judgment, but obviously did not work out the way they thought it was going to work out. Freaking Will Ferrell in that one movie with Marky Mark. Did that work out how you thought it did? Didn't. So yeah, they're in trouble. They got one more year to see if they can turn it around, but already the Seahawks are, I think, 3 years ahead of that rebuilding plan. Gino, I guess interesting side question here without getting too bogged down in these games before we start talking about more fantasy stuff, but do you think he's the actual answer moving forward? Or I guess I'll reveal on my end, I've got little like alarm bells of ninth year breakout, danger, danger, danger going off in my head.
I would say Geno Smith is a very capable bridge quarterback. He's bridging that gap right now for them. I think that's going to be a bridge that is extended longer than maybe they want, since they were, they're a playoff team. So they're 19 is the highest they can pick in the NFL draft.
Wow.
So yeah, and I will say the only thing that could have made that trade worse is if Drew Lock was the starting quarterback of the Seahawks and actually did better, which obviously didn't happen. He hasn't sniffed the field. So at least that didn't happen for the Broncos.
Yeah, man, it's hard for me to imagine that he could have done better with what we've seen of Drew Lock, but Russ was so trash. It's really hard. It's really hard to picture anybody doing worse. That's close and not a world of fantasy football that I want to contemplate. Ken Walker, super juicy. Side note for more fantasy discussions down the road. Dolphins, Bills.
This one's easy. It's the Bills. Bills by a mile.
The Bills.
Yeah, you got to pay the Bills. Skylar Thompson. You got a cool name. That's my analysis.
Sorry, Skylar Thompson. I saw a NSFW meme with that one police officer that was hooking up with everybody in her department about Skylar Thompson and what's going to happen with the Bills. But I digress there.
Yeah, we don't have to stay on the Bills very long. They're at home. They're going to win.
Okay, one quick thing though, Tua. What happens with Tua next year? Like, do you buy these rumors of him hanging it up? Multiple concussions, scary situations.
I do not think so just yet. I think that they are going to turn his helmet into a pillow however they can. But I don't think it's gonna be next season that Tua's got to try to make it to a second contract, even if that second contract isn't anything near what the top guys are getting, which it won't be. He's not to their level, but he's got to try to get paid once before, even if it's like a 2-year, 3-year deal. And, from there, we'll see, but I don't see him giving up on football that easy.
No. And if he has another good year, it could be close. I mean, the NFL is full of short memories, man. That's the thing that I always try to remember going into every season. It's very much a what have you done for me lately. Another good season could absolutely earn him that.
Yes, and real quick to jump in on short memories. Who drafted Geno Smith?
Jets.
Don't you wish they had him right now?
I would imagine they wish they had almost freaking anybody.
We'll get into the next game though, because I know that's a whole nother conversation for sure.
I feel like we talked about Bengals Ravens already, but we didn't really pick anybody.
Well, we'll do it in chronological order because the most important game
How could I
of the
forget?
day of the
How,
weekend is on Sunday. It's tomorrow, 4:30 Eastern Time. New York Giants versus the Minnesota Justin Jeffersons. Who you got?
do I even have to ask you who you got?
Yeah, you do because it's you have to pretend to care. In my opinion. You go first before I take over.
Close your ears. I have the Vikes. I just yes, like Kirk has been shaky in some big games in the past. Um, I think the Giants, in a lot of ways, overperformed this year. Based on expectations, based on their roster, I think Dable has shown to be a very capable coach, which they have not had in a long time. I think we all owe Daniel Jones something of an apology for thinking that he was just an absolute bum. He is not a bum. Still don't think he's ever going to hit that elite tier. But Justin Jefferson is a huge reason. I think he can make a play on anybody. I do think Minnesota will be able to score. And I don't know that the Giants offense will ultimately be able to keep them down for the entirety of a game.
You're such an NFL millennial.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
What wins championships?
Oh, this ain't the 80s anymore, bro.
So
The Chiefs give a crap about defense.
I think they do a little bit. They don't have to as much as a lot of other teams, but they've lost some big games. They've lost some big games because their defense just sucked. But anyways, now I will do my best to put my biases. How do you say that word? Aside. I feel the Giants will win because while yes, my heart does tell me that, I think this pass rush is going to go crazy.
Thibodeau's a
I,
mean man.
Ojulari, he's a good pass rusher as well. Dexter Lawrence has been one of the best interior defensive linemen, especially with getting pressure in the league. And they're getting Adoree Jackson back, top corner. Hopefully he just contains Jefferson a little bit more. I don't expect him to do Jair Alexander things, but if he can just a couple big plays, a couple third downs that Justin Jefferson doesn't pick up, might be all it takes. McKinney is back, so somebody actually play free safety that doesn't, let the ball goes right through his hands and Devonta Smith just scores a wide open touchdown on him. And yeah, so with that, and then the Vikings have one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
They
So
do.
while the Giants offense, besides Saquon Barkley, doesn't really excite anybody, Daniel Jones has been efficient. He has been not turning the ball over. He threw an interception to Patrick Peterson last time they played. It wasn't that bad of a throw. I mean, Peterson just, jumped the route perfectly, and veteran guy made a great play. Other than that, I think I'll put this in as well, what Daniel Jones' stats are for the year, but I want to say he's got like 5 interceptions all year.
I know he doesn't have a lot. He's been efficient. I think they've schemed him really well. And yeah, look, if the Giants are going to put up 30 points, Minnesota is the team to put up 30 points on. But that's what it's going to take, and they better be able to do it. I know their defense is good, but the way the NFL is now, the way it's reffed, the way it's played, good defense can only hold up so long. So I disagree, but How do I know, bro? If I knew how to pick these games, I would be a lot richer than I am. So this brings
Right.
us now to my homer pick.
Well, let's get Ravens Bengals in real quick then.
Oh, did we not
Go
pick?
going.
Oh, okay. I picked the Bengals. No Lamar, enough said.
Yeah, Bengals are winning that one. No Lamar, maybe not even any Huntley. Just the Bengals are coming in hot. The Ravens are sputtering. Um, if this is a Ravens win, it's a mega upset.
Yeah,
So I
and
doubt it.
I don't think that's going to happen. And I think if Joe Cool comes in with the Elton John fit again, it's the Bengals by 50.
I was gonna say, like, I could see the Bengals putting up 50 points in this game. Just because their defense, you just said it before, defense can only hold up so long. If their offense just can't pick up a first down and Joe Burrow just has that many opportunities, dude, it's and the defense should be able to the Bengals defense should be able to get a few turnovers as well, put them in short fields. Yeah.
100%, man. The Colts defense is viewed as a bad defense right now. It's not the same defense as last year. I get that, but they're really not bad. Their offense literally cannot get first downs.
Yeah.
And if you put a defense on a field for 55 minutes, they're going to get scored on. There's no question about it. No question. So yeah.
Yeah.
But
All right, man.
Bengals big.
All right, man. Cowboys, Bucks, where you at?
It's a tough game to kind of pick. I my head and my heart are in direct conflict. Um, my head tells me Bucks are not the same team. Obviously, they're in here limping into the playoffs with a losing record. Certainly are not the same team. Definitely not the same team that won the Super Bowl. Not even the same team that had a playoff flame out last year. So my head tells me it's the Cowboys. My heart is going to tell me it's the Bucks, and I'm going to pick the Bucks, and I'll tell you why. If there is a narrative that I can grasp onto that my heart can justify, it's if there is any team that can lose to an inferior opponent in the playoffs and play bad, the Cowboys are the perfect team to do that. They love doing that. And I don't just say that narrative-y, Tony Romo years, whatever. This team is not coming in hot. They've played bad, 3 weeks straight in a row. Ryan Jensen's coming back for the Bucks, so I think that definitely helps the run game. So if it's any team that can choke and give us another week in the playoffs, it's the Cowboys. I got the Bucks.
This is a hard one because it's close. I'm taking the Cowboys.
I don't blame you.
Cowboys they have a lot of firepower on that offense.
Sure,
And that defense, man, they are just streaky. And if
could kill Brady. He could literally kill Brady.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a game changer. Everyone wants to say Brady, 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 Brady. Yes, Brady is the most winning quarterback of all time when it really matters the most. Can't take anything away from Brady's career. We're talking about Brady right now. That's the thing that annoys me about. It's not him, but it's the attitude around Brady. Is that when you talk about him, people want you to talk about his entire legacy all the time. Can I just talk about how he is right now? Because the game he's playing is going to be on Monday.
Of the legacy.
What's that?
I said there's always the cloud of the legacy that I think changes the conversation, because it's like, okay, I know you're not a big NBA guy. I am. You see the magic fit here, but it's like the conversation around LeBron. When you talk about him, you kind of still have to talk about him as one of the best players in the NBA, which he is one of the best players in the NBA still. Amazing to do that at his age. But he's not in the conversation for the best. He's not anymore. it's Luka's league, it's Giannis's league, it's KD's league still in some ways. Like, it's passed him by, and a lot of people mentally still can't get past that because of his amazing body of work that he had in the past.
I have a video on my phone where at the warehouse after work, bunch of dudes, it was probably like 10 different guys just happened to be chilling in the same area. And naturally, a who's the best basketball player ever conversation started. The three names being circulated. You can probably go ahead, take a guess at the three names being circulated.
Yeah, of course. Somebody's got Jordan, somebody's got Kobe, somebody's got LeBron. It's
There
the
you go.
classic three-headed monster.
There you go. That was the three. So yeah, Brady's had a very pedestrian year. He's looked bad at times. It's not like, oh, my receivers are terrible, blah blah. No, I mean you've got
Slightly better in the last couple games. Slightly better. Got to give him that.
yes, yeah. Hey, this season as a whole, he hasn't always looked good. He's bounced a lot of balls. He's missed a lot of guys. You know, for whatever reason, it seems like the chemistry with some of his top receivers. I mean, him and Godwin seem to be on the same page all the time. But some of the other guys, obviously Mike Evans had a fantastic game a few weeks ago with 3 touchdowns and I want to say over 200 yards. But, you know, I think that this Dallas pass rush can really fluster
Oh, yeah.
anybody, doesn't matter which QB it is. They can fluster anybody. I don't see Brady being any exception.
That statue is tough. He's got to get rid of the ball quick. So, dude, I hear all of the reasons you're saying. They're 100% valid. If the Bucks win, if they win, it's because they stop the run, make Dallas one-dimensional. Dak makes a couple bad mistakes. If they win, it's because of that.
I would say so, and I would also say on the other side, Dak just needs to be efficient. He doesn't need to throw the ball 50 times. Got playmakers on that offense, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, CeeDee Lamb, he's a game breaker. You know, he can take a few big catches and just he'd break the game wide open. So can Tony Pollard.
I'm really curious where he goes next year.
Fantasy. Yeah, actually, we'll talk about that. So
yeah,
let's actually get into what we wanted to talk about because we've spent a lot of time talking about the playoffs, but it makes sense because the playoffs are starting today. So I'm gonna give you the floor with the topic that you want to talk about. I want to talk about too, but you're passionate about.
Yes.
That is zero RB. And before you start talking, I need you to do one thing for me.
What's that?
I want you to define zero RB because I think there is a lot of when you hear zero RB, a lot of people might say, you just don't draft a running back the entire draft. Okay. Like, not what it means. Go ahead.
So it's funny that you're having me define it because I'm not sure that it has a solid definition. So no, it does not mean never take a running back in your draft. Obviously, if you do that, you're setting yourself up for big trouble in Little China. I think there's different variations, right? So you can have the pure zero RB, which essentially is, okay, I am going to draft the best player at the other positions. And the theory behind it is running backs get hurt often, sometimes don't return the value that we want to get from them. And it is a zig instead of zag mentality, right? Everybody is drafting running backs in the first 2 rounds, which does make sense because there is that positional scarcity. You really don't get a ton of great running backs usually in rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So everybody snatches up a bunch of running backs. But instead of leaning into that, the idea of zero RB is going completely away from that and being like, cool, you're going to give me a gift of all of these amazing receivers and quarterbacks. I'm just going to take them. I'm going to take him on my team and essentially punt top flight running backs. And now I'm going to have to hit on my running backs late in the draft, and I'm going to have to make a big waiver pickup throughout the year. A riskier strategy, definitely. There's debate out there, right, whether or not it really works. How's that for a definition, Andrew, on the fly?
I would say that's a solid definition.
Would you
I'm
add
going to get
to it?
I'm going to give my definition of zero RB because that's how the example team that I laid out is built. And it's about my opinion because that's what's right. So, I know I make myself laugh. Zero RB is no running back taken before the 5th round. That's
Oh,
it.
so you have a round number to it. You're like, this is my rule. I'm not taking them before the 5th, no matter what.
Typically, when you're building a roster, your roster construction, to sound fancy, is going to consist of your top 4 picks are the core of your team. If the core of your team includes a running back, it's not zero RB.
Not a pure zero RB, because there's ways to modify it, right? Because we hear about it all the time. The hero RB strategy. I get my number one guy and then I ignore it the rest of the draft. Or I think there's other, like, so I'll give an example. There's other modifications you can do, right? Like a guy in my work league went with like a modified zero RB. He didn't draft one, I think, until maybe like the 4th or 5th, which isn't quite pure zero RB, but it's kind of sniffing that way. So I think there's other ways to hedge your bets too, not just be a purist.
Yeah, personal experience, my hero RB of Jonathan Taylor did
Woof.
not work out, but I said it last episode. It also didn't work out because I traded Miles Sanders out of frustration. But I got Joe Mixon back. I don't know how much of that really mattered.
It mattered against me with 6
Well,
touchdowns.
that's true. Yeah, the 5 touchdown game. It felt like 100.
On the batch.
But yeah, that one game certainly mattered. Yes. So zero RB. This is what I'm going to say about zero RB, but I'm going to say this about drafting in general. Going into a draft with the attitude of I have to use this strategy, like, I don't like that. I think it's a, be water, my friend kind of situation all the time in drafting. But here's where zero RB matters. Don't be scared to do it. If the draft board presents itself to you in a way where you can take certain players that are not running backs,
Justin J, for example.
why don't I'm going to go into the example that I picked, the realistic example from last year. I did 10 rounds, and this is what the team looked like. So I'm going to say this was drafting like middle of the pack, 5th or 6th pick overall. Justin Jefferson, round 1.
Love it.
Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen, because the value is there in the 3rd round.
I paid for that stack.
Yeah, and you actually got him in the 4th, which is tremendous value for Josh Allen. So that's great. I'm not the early QB kind of guy. Never have been, never will be.
Usually
but
not.
That's one where, hey, the value makes sense. But okay, 3rd round, Josh Allen. 4th round, Jalen Waddle. 5th round. So now my zero RB strategy is solidified. David Montgomery, Elijah Mitchell, Antonio Gibson, and Tony Pollard were my next 4 picks. So 4 straight running backs. I didn't necessarily pick the running backs that they worked out because they worked out. Or they didn't work out because that's not really realistic. Like,
plug and play guys. So how did your season turn out? Because I think it turned out great.
Last 2 picks on that was Devonta Smith who went really a lot lower than, and he definitely returned on his value, and Ramondre Stevenson, who in 2 leagues I was in, and I was targeting him in both leagues, and I didn't get him in either league. So, with that team, so let's just say I dropped Elijah Mitchell early on in the season because he got hurt, or put him in IR because some people play with IR. Montgomery was serviceable throughout most of the year. I mean, he was losing a lot of touches to Khalil Herbert for a while, and then he was getting vultured by his own QB, which is one of my favorite situations for running backs. Antonio Gibson, he had a very similar. He was like the poor man's Josh Jacobs this year, where like at least for the beginning of the year, where it's like everyone's like, dude, he's a punt returner now.
Like this.
Yeah, and he had some value though for a while there. Pollard was obviously carrying teams for a good bit, and Ramondre Stevenson the same thing, was carrying teams for a bit. So, I would say that with that team, you were a playoff team.
You're competing for a ship. You're absolutely competing for a ship with that, no doubt. Now, I
Yeah.
don't think that it
kind of
works.
You would have sputtered out in the playoffs if your 1 and 2 ended up being like Stevenson and Pollard.
Yeah.
But you would have had the horses at wide receiver to, do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, and so I think that goes into the point that, obviously for most people doing zero RB, I don't think your first 4 picks hit that amazingly, right? But I showed you a team. I won't get too much into it, but very similar draft strategy. Ended up the number 1 seed. They didn't end up winning the championship because fantasy just be weird like that.
Yeah. If you had Jerick McKinnon, you won. That's pretty much it.
Right. Funny enough, they did, and they still didn't.
Oh wow.
They ended up splitting a pot, which you already know.
Well, yeah, it's a weird year.
So ultimately, it worked out big for that team, and that was a real world example. Because again, you're going to make waiver pickups throughout the year. My team that I made it furthest in the playoffs, my running backs were awful. I drafted Alvin Kamara and Breece Hall, dead, 100% death.
That sounded great on draft night.
Right. I loved it on draft night. And, to start the season, Breece was awesome, but then he got hurt. So, I pieced it together with, I think, a combination of Brian Robinson for a while and Dante Foreman for a while and whoever else I could pick up on waivers, and found out that with good receivers and a good team around my team, you can kind of piece running back together as you go, which leads me into my argument for zero RB. I think that, like you said, there is no one strategy that's going to win fantasy football every single time, because if there was, everybody would do it forever. But I think it's 100% a viable strategy, and I'm willing to go. I pulled up the half point rankings from last year. This is basically where people were drafting. It's ESPN, not the best rankings in my opinion, but the rankings that the majority of the fantasy community is going to go after. These are the guys that are most popularly drafted in the first 3 rounds. And I'm just going to go down the list of running backs, and you tell me if that guy returned value or not. And let's keep a tally of how many running back wins you got this year versus how many running back losses. All right. And now my mouse doesn't want to work. Wonderful. All right. Okay. RB1, baby. Jonathan Taylor.
Did not return value.
No, he did not. Sad face for both of us. C-Mac? I would say so.
CMC, I think, absolutely did. Yeah.
Henry and Eckler, great values. I think they definitely won. So what are we rocking? 3 out of 4 so far? That's pretty good.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 so far.
And then after that, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Javonte Williams.
None of them did. None of them returned their value, in my opinion.
Okay, so Javonte and Najee completely out. Another sad face for me. They didn't return value. I think Dalvin and Joe Mixon, I don't think returned first round value, but they were fine. And if you drafted them to have RB1 or borderline RB1 value, they didn't kill you. They didn't kill you this year. They stayed healthy and basically did their jobs for the most part. I know Joe Mixon was frustrating, but I will give you a pass on those two, just for the sake of argument, for us to have a conversation later about RBs in the first 2 rounds. So for those keeping track at home, where are we at, Andrew?
So I'm just gonna.
So we got
to interject with that. Let's put it this way: Mixon and Dalvin Cook are like you bought Tesla stock, and you expected it to make you money. You held the bag for a year and you broke even. You're like, I need this money back right now, and I didn't lose money, but I didn't make any money. And that's kind of, it's kind of a push, like in blackjack. You kind of just pushed. You just got your money back from those guys.
Okay. So right now, if I'm counting right, we have less than half of the running backs in the first round return value, best case, if you count Dalvin Cook and Joe. So now we got DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, Kamara, Zeke.
Okay, so
a lot to unpack there, I know.
Saquon Barkley did return his value.
Nick Chubb did.
Nick Chubb, 100%. Breece Hall was.
Bummer.
DeAndre Swift had a
part of it is the health.
Yeah, and that's obviously a gigantic part of football and fantasy football. So Breece Hall looked like he was on his way to absolutely returning value. DeAndre Swift had a weird season where he was like injured, not injured.
You better have backed him up with Jamal Williams. That's all I know.
Yeah, Jamal Williams is a great example for your RB or zero RB strategy. So, yeah. Who else? I'm forgetting certain running backs.
Zeke and Kamara. Boo on both to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zeke was drafted like about what, 4th round ADP on average.
Here it's showing the 25.
So 3rd round.
Yes, that's the 3rd round. I'm just going the first like 3 rounds.
Okay, yeah. Zeke, I would say he's underwhelming because of name value, but if you were to take the name out of it, pretty much just another just broke even.
Okay. So then we got Lenny Fournette, H.A. Dillon snuck into the first 3 rounds. Ouch. And James Conner.
James Conner, yes. A.J. Dillon, no.
Did he?
I would say so. I mean, down the stretch, he was solid.
Okay, I guess down the stretch he had some decent numbers, but I mean he was pretty. I had him. He was a lame duck for some portion of the season when he wasn't scoring touchdowns. And A.J. Dillon, obviously, ouch. That pick hurt.
A.J. Dillon was a team wrecker for sure, because you're relying on him to be. Well, you're first of all, you're relying on the Packers to not suck.
Yeah.
And then you were relying on Aaron Jones not being 50% of the offense as well.
And Lenny was mediocre for most of the season until the train just completely fell off the track. So Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, less than half. Rocking less than 50%.
So yeah, that's the game you play when you're drafting a running back. Before the zero RB strategy comes into play. But I would imagine that if we were to do the same example, fifth round and after for running backs, the hit rate would be less.
Yes.
So
Yeah, so you know you're punting it.
Yeah, there's absolutely a reason for it. So let's wrap it up in a bow of what is your final conclusion on, like, will you be doing zero RB in the future, or what are you thinking about how
I'm
you're approaching drafts?
I'm gonna start with you. Let's pretend that we have to adopt now. Again, I know you like flexibility, I like flexibility. So this is like a scenario, but let's say you have to adopt this strategy in our main league, the main record league, the big league. Are you prepared to do it? Yes, no, and why?
I am absolutely prepared to do it because I want value at all positions, and for me it's just a matter of breaking free from my fantasy boomer mentality of running backs are like the end all be all. You know, that is something that's like ingrained in my brain from playing fantasy football for about 20 years now. Yeah, I know you too. So, like, that's not really the case anymore. I think that I don't want to open up this conversation fully, but on a year over year basis, wide receivers are becoming the more consistent commodity.
We can
Running
have
backs,
another pod just on that.
absolutely. Running backs are becoming more volatile. Um, week to week, receivers are more volatile. That's why you can always pick up a guy on the waiver wire, throw him in. You might get 100 yards and a touchdown. You might. But if you're picking up the third string guy on San Francisco, you're hoping that his 2 carries go for a long touchdown. Like,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
having consistent, like having consistent production from your receivers, like the Justin Jeffersons of the world, the Cups of the world, the volume hogs like Devontae Adams, like
yeah.
it's nice. And it really takes a lot of the stress out of building a lineup.
And that also goes into, now you're saying, well, what's your format? We play exclusively half PPR. It is the right way to play. This is not a debate. It is the right way to play. Like, it's the what story was it? This porridge is too hot. This is too cold. This one's just right.
Yes,
Like,
it's just right, Goldilocks.
yes, like it is right. That's the right way to play.
Ignore the fact that she breaks and enters into a stranger's house and just starts eating their food and whatever.
That's here nor there. I mean, half point PPR is the right way to play fantasy football. Okay. That being said, yes, if you have those target vacuums on your team, it's a major advantage, especially if you have Travis Kelce, because now you have a target hog at the only position where it matters. Well, not that it matters. The only position where you're getting that much of a disparity, from one player versus the rest of the field.
Yeah. Well, I think I already played my card here. Obviously, I made the argument in the first place for the zero RB. I am a believer. I do think that going forward, we do have to shift that mentality and understand that you don't have to exclusively get running backs in the first 3 rounds to be afraid of the position scarcity. Now, you can lose. You can lose this way. Like, it's a risk either way, right? You make a running back heavy team, you risk, having more volatile wide receivers. You risk some running backs going down. Of course, we know the risks that make people want to take zero RB in the first place. But guess what, Playboy? You got risks at zero RB too. You can pick the wrong receivers. We can do this exact same exercise. I think mostly receivers will hit more, but you can definitely pick the wrong people. You can pick the wrong quarterback. You can get yourself in trouble really early. You can pick the wrong tight end. So you can get yourself in trouble this way. And obviously, if you don't hit late in the draft with your running backs, and you're not one of the guys that gets the waiver wire warriors throughout the year, you can be in trouble. But knowing all of that, knowing that fantasy is a risk regardless, I'm going to go with the numbers here. And I'm not going to give away my full draft strategy to my direct competitor here, but you can expect to see some version of this play out. I don't know if it will be a pure zero RB or if it will be some modified version of the zero RB, because I think your hero RB was a good process. I think it was a good idea, just didn't work out with JT. So short answer, yes. I do think that this is the more logical risk to take if your draft falls to you in this way. If I don't have one of my locked and loaded running backs that I want to hitch my wagon to fall to me, I'll just punt it.
I respect it. Real quick, I'm going to do I have our draft board up on my phone from this past year.
Oh no, don't do that to me.
I'm not going to talk about your draft. I'm just going to say first 3 rounds. I'm not. Okay. You tell me just hit or miss. You don't have to explain anything. Let's just take injuries out of it because
is this the no tight end league?
Yes. But
okay.
I'm still gonna talk about pass catchers.
Okay.
So Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews. Okay. First round, Cooper Kupp, hit or miss.
He got hurt later in the year, but for the most part, a hit.
Hit, right? Okay. Justin Jefferson.
Oh, come on. Big hit.
Jamar Chase.
A wash. I call that a wash.
But if it wasn't because of injuries and stuff,
yes,
he most likely was a hit, right? Okay. Travis Kelce.
Hit. Even in a no tight end league, still a hit.
First rounder.
I know. Spicy.
Back of the first round. Yeah. Stephon Diggs.
Hit, baby.
Devontae Adams.
Hit. And a loss for me.
CeeDee Lamb.
Hit.
Deebo Samuel.
That's a miss. I think that was a miss.
I agree on that one, unfortunately.
Miss.
That was my team. Miss. Tyreek Hill.
Big hit. Annoying hit.
Third round value as well.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen.
Miss.
Mike Evans.
This one hurts. That's a miss. That's a miss.
Yeah, too inconsistent for this year
to
be considered a hit. T. Higgins.
Mostly a hit. I would have him just on this side of hit for the draft value.
Yeah, he's on one of my teams, and I would consider him a hit.
I'll wash it. I'll say you wash the value there.
A lot of that, I think a lot of T. Higgins is where you got him. I think I got T. Higgins in the 4th round.
Yeah, not bad at all.
So, yeah, I was happy with T. Higgins in the 4th. A.J. Brown.
Oh, super hit. League champion.
Michael Pittman.
Miss. Another sad face.
Definitely a miss. Mike Williams.
A miss. I'm a never Mike Williams guy. Never Mike Williams.
Cortland Sutton.
Miss. Another miss for me.
DJ Moore.
Miss, but that drafter knew what he was doing. He knew the bed he was laying in.
Either way, didn't feel like he returned value, right?
Mhm.
Mark Andrews.
In that league, that's a miss because we don't have to start a tight end, so that's a miss.
I would say it's a miss regardless, because especially if you have to start a tight end, because some cases he was taken ahead of Kelsey. Gigantic miss.
Yeah.
And the last one I'll example to, also I drafted Kyle Pitts.
that was your worst miss of the whole draft.
That was the worst. That was the worst miss of any draft.
Yeah.
My God.
Even in our league where you didn't have to pay the tight end premium, that still hurt bad. But you made the playoffs and I didn't. So, who's laughing?
I farted my way in. But that was the first 4 rounds of pass catchers. I would argue the hit rate on the pass catchers was higher than the running backs.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we were.
I can go do the math, I guess, but I'm not going to do that on the spot.
No, but we were way over half. I mean, I would say 70% or greater.
We said hit. We said hit a lot more than we said miss.
Yeah.
So. All right, man. We're going to do this section pretty quick. Just kind of off the top of your head, if you can think of any, what kind of trade / signings for free agents, where would you like some of those guys to go that you think would be a good hit for fantasy? So I'm going to start. I'll start with one because I kind of have one. As much as it hurts me, and it's a big question mark, is he actually going to be a free agent? Saquon Barkley.
Oh, wow.
Tell
me about that. Where's he going?
I would love to see him go to Miami.
You wouldn't love that. Don't say you would love that. For your
fantasy. For fantasy. Yeah. Like the Giants, I would hate to see him go, but the debate of paying a running back and all that stuff, we all know it. Yeah, I mean, paying a running back a premium just never seems to be the right idea. You can still win that way, but anyways, I think Barkley going to Miami would really be helpful for that kind of quick strike passing offense.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would do fantastic in that like zone running scheme. I guess, I don't think it's totally fair to say this. I think it's kind of a cop-out answer.
We have 3 talented injury-prone running backs.
Well, Saquon will be the most talented. And he's been healthy all year, knock on wood. He's still got to get through a game tomorrow and then the game after that, after they win. So that's one that I would like to see. That would be a pairing that I think would work out really well for fantasy.
It would be fun. It would be interesting. I don't, you talk about for fantasy, I don't know that would, because Saquon Barkley, will be a first rounder next year. So I don't know that would move the needle as much of his value. Or I don't see it taking away as much from like a Reek Hill or Jalen Waddle. All this assuming Tua is there. So I think it'd be a lot of fun, and I think it would help Miami from a football perspective big time. I just don't know that it changes a lot for fantasy.
That's fair. So do you have one? You want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, I'll get one. This is just more of a, chaos would be interesting one. Lamar gets randomly traded to the Colts. I do not see it happening. It won't actually happen, but I think it would be fun. Their offensive line got hurt bad. They need a quarterback that has mobility. They don't have the same offensive line as they had last year. I think him and JT in the back would be an amazing like thunder and lightning combo. I think Lamar is a good enough passer to hit a big target like Mike Pittman. Um, and I think it just opens up the offense, makes the offense exciting. It makes that offense relevant for fantasy again. It gives me some semblance of hope. A big contract would hurt by like the third, fourth, fifth year, probably. But the fan in me, the fanboy and the fantasy guru person in me wants that pairing to happen.
Yeah, it's hard for a Colts anybody who follows the Colts in any capacity to not want a quality quarterback after the years of suffering with a lot of washed up players.
Please make it end. It's going to end in the draft. They're going to do something to address it in the draft. It's going to be a drafted player, but just for fantasy fun, that would be my thing.
Yeah, I think C.J. Stroud is destined to be a Colt.
I believe so.
I would like to see the Packers get another receiver, a smart veteran, a talented, smart veteran
like
that Aaron Rodgers can actually use without blowing a gasket on their ass. Jacoby Myers to the Packers.
Oh, interesting. That would be kind of an under the radar signing or trade, but I could see it actually physically happening. They need to do something. They don't have enough production. Christian Watson is an amazing athlete. He's not an amazing wide receiver yet.
Yeah, and like Rodgers wants to make him a really good receiver, and I think he's shown that he's capable. The Packers have some aversion to drafting receivers early. I don't know what the deal is, but yeah, I would imagine that he stays in New England because it's not like New England is like, got receivers pouring out. Anyway, they kind of need receivers as well. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the player is going to end up there. So I would like to see that. So this is an interesting one because the situation surrounding him is funky. Tony Pollard.
You for one here?
Yeah, sorry. I'll do 2 for 1. You go next.
Dirty dog.
Tony Pollard.
Okay.
Where would you like to see Tony Pollard? I'll ask you.
Okay. Man, Tony Pollard, I think, can fit in on almost any team and contribute. This is very interesting, kind of just trying to jump in off the dome here. There are teams that need running backs, but I also know that I just don't know.
Can I give you one?
Would be the best fantasy place. Yeah, you go ahead first.
Let me know if anything happens to you physically thinking about this. Tony Pollard to the Ravens.
I feel shall we say a stirring in my loins for the possibilities of his fantasy value.
I feel like Tony Pollard, now Lamar Jackson, whatever, there or not there, if they get somebody serviceable at QB. No, this is not if they go into the season with Tyler Huntley or, God forbid, Anthony Brown.
So this is assuming that Lamar is, because that's what I was doing. Lamar is there or somebody good.
Yeah, a functional QB.
Okay.
For that offense.
I'm just assuming Lamar is there. I think that would be a great pairing. Because he can do so much without just an in between the tackles run.
In the way that Ravens like pull all those linemen all the time, man, I feel like he would just go nuts behind the line like that. The best fit for him is probably Dallas, but that's why I said it's kind of weird because they already paid Zeke a ton. Like, is he going to pay? Jerry Jones is the owner to do it. Is he going to commit that much money to the running back position?
So that's funny. I think they have to. I mean, I think that I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know the exact complexities of Zeke's deal. I would imagine that if there's only a couple years left on it, that there is an ability to take a cap hit on him and take him off the books or do a restructuring. I think they're committed at this point to the Zeke Tony Pollard thing. They're going to run Zeke's old plotting legs into the ground for as long as they can, get as many carries out of that money as they can. And Tony Pollard is waiting in the wings to be, he's already the 1A, but to be the one period on that team. That's what I truly believe is going to happen.
Yeah, for him to just be like the superhero running back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. There is a world where they, whatever, you can work with money and switch things around and all that stuff. And
they can do it. They got the money to do it. Their brand makes so much.
It's more of a cap situation than a does Jerry Jones have the money, So go ahead and give me one more if you can.
I've got one more. You kind of stole my thunder a little bit with the Green Bay thing, because that's where I was going to go.
Paul, you never had thunder to begin with.
Nuke Hopkins to Green Bay.
Okay, yeah. You know where I want Nuke Hopkins to go?
Oh, I know where you want him to go. I know that.
New York Giants, baby. Screw drafting a guy. Trade for him.
There's probably 10 teams realistically that would be in on Nuke Hopkins if they really moved him. I don't see how Arizona really would do that. I don't know why they would. They already have a fairly high draft pick to shore up their team. They're committed to Kyler. For better or worse, they're committed to Kyler. So I don't know that they go for a full blow up. But if they do, you got about 10, 15 teams. They're going to be the first to the water line with their bucket.
Yeah, I think they do trade Hopkins. I think Hopkins wants out. I think that they're in enough of a rebuild that because Kyler does Kyler play next season? And if so, when?
Not for a sizable chunk at least, and probably not. I mean, I think he's going to be doing a lot of work on his Call of Duty game.
He's going to be crushing it, man. That KD is going to be going up for sure. But
catch him on Twitch.
What's it called? Like no homework, Murray. I'm not a big fan of Kyler Murray. He just frustrates the hell out of me.
Yeah,
so talented, but just doesn't seem like he's wants to really put it all together. I'm sorry, this glare on my face is rough.
That's American sports for you, my friend. You're gonna get a lot of chances from that talent. You're gonna get a ton of chances.
Yeah, because there's only so many guys that can even come close to playing on your level. Like, but okay, I think that's a good one. I would love to see him go to the Giants because they need a real number one receiver. A veteran wide receiver would do wonders for Daniel Jones in that offense. And a guy who can actually get separation, even though that's not even really his game. It's more of just like
just win at the point of attack.
Yeah, win at the point of attack, physical receiver. He can get yards after the catch, like whatever. I don't have to sell Nuke Hopkins to anybody. The only thing is people get scared by that big 3-0, but I don't care.
As scary
I don't care.
Receivers as it is for running backs. Not as scary. But yeah, he's a veteran receiver. You're not going to expect him to burn down the field, but he didn't forget how to run routes and he didn't forget how to be big and have good hands. So yeah, if you can get him for a day 2 pick, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's probably going to be commanding a price of a mid to late first rounder.
I disagree with that. I think you can get, because Arizona paid, what did they paid a second rounder for him, if I'm not mistaken, in the first place. And that was
a similar situation. He kind of keeps ending up on teams that are going to rebuild in 2 years.
Yeah. But that was like 2 years, and whatever, 1,000 routes ago. So no, I like if you being a Giants fan, I think that you can rest assured that you could get a receiver who's about to age out for not a first round pick. You don't have to pay a first round pick for Nuke. They paid a first
Well,
round Hollywood because he's entering.
I would I would hope not that it didn't cost that much. But like you said, there's 10 to 15 teams that are running up to try to get their hands on DeAndre Hopkins. That's just basic supply and demand. There's one DeAndre Hopkins and 10 teams that wants him.
Somebody could be crazy and do it. I agree with that. You're right. There is such a thing as a bidding war, but as much as I love Nuke, I can't do that. I can't do that because I if I'm paying a first round pick for a receiver, I'm going to try to draft the next Justin Jefferson. I'm going to try to draft another Jamar Chase. Like,
yeah,
the way these guys are making impacts in the NFL now, like a first rounder, no. You can get me interested for anything on day 2 or day 3, in my opinion.
I feel you on that. I would love for that to be the case for the Giants, but this is obviously a long shot hypothetical situation. So we're gonna wrap it up here soon. But I want to ask you this one question, and then I'll give my answer. And feel free to extrapolate on this. What is your biggest lesson that you learned in fantasy this year?
Okay. Can I give a cop-out answer of something that we kind of already covered? Because I think that's the biggest lesson that I've taken away, is that it doesn't have to be running back. It doesn't have to be running back receiver. The zero build works. I've seen it work enough now where I can take that into the next season. But I'll give you a bonus one since we already talked about that. My biggest lesson that I want to take away into next year and remember going into next year, the shiny new quarterback is not always the savior. Every year, new quarterback, new team, new situation. I buy in. I draft the Cortland Suttons of the world. I draft the Jerry Judys. I go all into these offenses. So in the conversation of new quarterbacks versus new receivers coming in, new receivers won this year and retained their value. New quarterbacks are not always the answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and it's 100% the truth. Biggest example, as you were alluding to, is Russell Wilson. So as I've said multiple times, I've played fantasy for a long time. I seem to learn something every year, like one big takeaway every year. And maybe it changes as the league changes, or I just grow up more, or whatever. But here's my lesson that I learned in fantasy football this year. The off season is always going to be full of a lot of noise. And a lot of times it's exaggerated. It's hyperbole. I'll give you two major examples. One,
one of them.
Josh Jacobs. All I have to say about that is Josh Jacobs. Two, well, I'll give you three. Antonio Gibson wasn't as much of a bum as people thought he'd be. That one's more minor. But the Seahawks offense. We thought the Seahawks offense was going to be the Broncos. Like straight up, we thought it was going to be switch spots.
But that was freaky. That was Freaky Friday. They Freaky Friday'd us, and I still think the process was mostly correct on that.
Sure, but my point is, just because you're hearing all the noise doesn't necessarily mean you have to completely stay away. That's on the negative or the positive side. You know, sometimes people get drafted way too high because there's a lot of hype around them. Kadarius Toney. And they're not worth a damn, you know, in fantasy at least. And sometimes somebody just absolutely craters. You know, you see it every year in every draft, you know, assuming you're drafting from a computer or a phone, you see the list. There's this one name on top of the list. I think it was like James Robinson this past year,
Mhm.
where for whatever reason, they just nobody just wants to touch them. And the farther along they go,
Dude,
the more people get scared. You know, maybe not the best example because he had like 3 good weeks and then I decided to start him and he did nothing from like the rest of the year. But like just saw there's just the name that stays there on top that nobody wants.
and
And
Metcalf, DK Metcalf dropped big time.
people were scared to death of DK Metcalf. And like, yeah, well, did he blow up? Like, not really, but he had a very solid year. You got value from him. Whoever
He
drafted DK got value.
basically a DK-ish year.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't matter that it was Geno at QB. You know, he did pretty well. So yeah, that
Yeah,
is the lesson I'm leaving. That
that's
be wary of the offseason noise. Make your
that's
own decisions.
that's a great lesson, man. And that's something that I for sure, like you said it, it's been in the back of my mind. It's 100% something I need to take away, absolutely, because I did it. I stay plugged in. I listen to the content. I'm always wanting to do the pre-draft research, and I hear the noise. And even if at first it's only noise to me, you hear something long enough, loud enough, it starts to affect the way you think and the way you draft. There's no question about it. It happens. The people that went into the draft doing a little bit of research, kind of figuring out who's where, but they had a cleaner mindset. Oh, Josh Jacobs has been good the last 3 years. Like, why does he keep dropping in drafts? Like, oh, DK Metcalf's a really good receiver. Like, why are people waiting into the 7th round to pick him up? Like, sometimes we can outsmart ourselves and be big brains and lose out on it, right? Like, you talk about the extremes, that really makes me think that the extremes are often not the case. Is DK Metcalf losing his quarterback? Does that mean he has the same ceiling that he always had? No. But does that mean that he absolutely craters in value the way that we all thought he did? No. The truth should be somewhere in the middle, and we need to keep that in mind. Great takeaway.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, we'll call that an episode. It's been quite a long one. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I know Paul's enjoyed it. And thank all of you for joining New World Fantasy Football episode 2. And we'll be back soon. Peace.
Thanks, brother. Enjoy the games. We'll be texting.
Go Giants.
Bucks, baby.